Welcome, second 8-week Student Success Seminar students. Again, this is Dr. Linda Remark. This is week 1 of our second 8-week session. This week will run from Monday, March 21st through Sunday the 27th. If you have not already watched my welcome video, I did send it out in a couple of the emails that I sent out as we're leading up to this. If you did not get a chance to watch that, I'm going to recommend that you go to the Start Here area, scroll down just a little bit, and you're going to see my welcome video right here. So this is the video that I sent a link to out in your emails, and it's also embedded right here. It just gives you a navigation of the course so that you know what to expect, how to navigate it, just really specific to our course. Although if you're familiar with Blackboard, this course kind of falls into a very similar pattern with a lot of the Blackboard courses here at the college. Okay, so I'm trying something different with my second 8-week session in terms of my videos. So I'm actually going to break week 1 into 3 separate videos. That way each video is a little bit shorter, so you're not getting one long video, because sometimes with an 8-week session, some of the videos can go a little long because there's just so much content in 1 week, since we're taking 16 weeks and putting it into 8. So I just wanted to let you know that right up front. You are going to see multiple videos for this week. So this first video is going to talk about chapter 1. So if I go to the lessons area, the first thing you want to make sure you do, however, so you can even access this week, is to take your syllabus quiz. So if you recall, if you watched the welcome video already, I did talk about this. Make sure that you take your syllabus quiz. You have to get 100%, and then you will see that week 1 folder open. If you do not see week 1 open, so it'll have this dark color folder there. Whenever it's open, you can see it. It's grayed out on my screen. That's how you know you got the 100%. If you do not see it, you need to make sure that you go back in and take it. Okay? Also, I talk about in the welcome video these different, discussion forums, the Muddy Point and the Student Lounge. These will be there all session long, and there's a general access to your textbook. So for this video, we're really going to focus just on week 1, chapter 1. Okay, so this is the chapter 1 lecture video. I will also upload a chapter 2 lecture video. And then my third video will focus just on the assignments so that you can kind of pay attention for shorter amounts of time versus one long video over everything. Okay, so all the weeks will be set up just like this. We have an overview of everything that you're going to read and review, as well as the assignments, and then you'll have the materials folder and the assignment folder. So we're going to go ahead and click in the materials folder. We're going to scroll down a little bit. Now, one thing about this, if you click on the chapter 1 slideshow, it is a terribly long slideshow. So I will not go through all 47 slides of these. In fact, I'm going to really rely on the chapter 1 textbook link to get me through this, but I do encourage you to take a look at these, especially because there are some slides that kind of ask you questions. I don't collect these. This is just for you to kind of think through some things. But there are some slides that really kind of pull out some of the ideas introduced in chapter 1 that will help you focus. Okay, so I encourage you to take a look at it, on your own, but I don't typically lecture from this slideshow in particular, just because there are so many slides. But please feel free to take a look for a little bit more detail on some of the chapter 1 concepts. All right, so chapter 1, I got there again in my materials folder. Here is a direct link to chapter 1. So chapter 1, titled You and Your College Experience. So just kind of like it sounds, this is about your college experience. And so every chapter will start off with like a, where are you? Kind of assess where you are. Yes, unsure, no, just a check in with yourself. And then some goal setting. Where do you want to go as it relates to kind of college success in general? And this is the, how does this relate? What is this chapter going to connect on? So down here it talks about welcome to college. Now for some of you, it depends on, you've already been taking a first 8-week session or a 16-week session. So this isn't nothing new to you. There might be a handful of you, though, this is your first part of college. You started your second 8-week session now. So this is just going to say, hey, this is all the benefits of attending college. And even if this is not your first session, there are benefits to college beyond kind of what sometimes we recognize the benefit to be, job security or better career placement. You have all these other things. You gain skills that can be used in different areas. You have an opportunity to gain kind of more engagement in your community, to improve the lives of yourself and either your current children, future children, family members in general. So lots of different benefits beyond just what sometimes we think about. And so this section talks about like, hey, you're here because obviously you want to do well for yourself and hopefully have a career that you have a passion in, but there are a lot of other reasons that it's beneficial to attend college. So this next section, who are you, is just really making sure that you take some minutes or hours, whatever it might be, to check in with yourself. What are your values? What interests match your personality, match your career, and just really looking at all those things and how they play a role in your career path. So I do encourage you to kind of take a look at this. Again, I do not collect this. You do not turn this in. Just kind of thinking, you know, are you here for 2 years? Are you here for 3 years? Are you going to transfer? What are obstacles that might come across your path that you're going to have to try to get over to help you succeed? How will you do that? So just really making sure you think through those things. This section is going to talk about values. What are some values? So there's a little check in. What are your values? What's important to you? What's not important to you? And ultimately, your values and your career choice should align, because a lot of career research does say that if you have values in a career that do not align, you're more likely to be dissatisfied with your career path. So this section right here, I always encourage students kind of like focus in on the sections that you need to think about. If you haven't already declared a major, this section is going to make you think about that. Maybe you're thinking about changing majors. You can also visit this section as well. Here are some examples of value assessments that you can take to kind of just check in. What are your values? How do they align with the career path? You know, hopefully if you're in a nursing path or a medical path, your values have to do with caring for people and, you know, making sure that you are connecting or, you know, serving them in that capacity. This section talks about your past educational experiences, depending on what kind of student you are, meaning are you currently a high school student? Are you fresh out of high school? Are you a couple years away from, you know, graduation? So making sure that you just realize that high school and college are very different, and this section goes into those details. So again, if you feel like high school is pretty fresh in your memory because maybe you just graduated last year or you're currently in high school, this talks about, hey, there's a lot of differences, and those differences can play a role in how you approach your coursework and the time you spend in the classroom. And so you want to make sure that you are acknowledging those, and this goes over those sections here. This section talks about your kind of just who you are as a student and why that's important. I think this section is really helpful, especially as an online student, you know, making sure that you are very self-managed, so that you are having a very, you know, dedicated and motivated overall student experience, but also as an online student. Here in section 1.2, this just introduces the fact that we have all different kinds of students here at the college, and then if you go to a four-year college afterwards. So we have what's called traditional students. These are the students who maybe you did come to college right out of high school. Versus returning students, maybe you took some time off in between, or maybe you had a career and you're coming back for another career. Okay, so that's returning. And there's a lot of other student groups. Here at the college, we don't have really commuter students, because technically we're all commuting because we don't have any on-campus dormitories. First generation, we do have a large population. This means you are the first in your family to attend college, and so there are different obstacles for these students. We have a lot of immigrant and international students at Stark State, and we have students with different needs, whether that is academic, with physical needs, whatever that might look like. Many of you might be working, a lot of you might have a family, and this is what successful students could look like. There's some characteristics. You don't have to check every single box, and this will show you like where we're going to see those within our text. This next section talks about how you learn. So the learning cycle, here's just in general, things you want to do to make sure that you are being effective in your learning. Prepare, absorb, capture, and review. And this will go into detail. You want to make sure that you are prepared both physically and mentally, whether it's an in-person class or an online class. Materials, making sure that you are reading the lectures reading the chapters before a lecture. Absorbing is when you're kind of taking in those ideas and you're listening to the lecture, or you're listening to a recording, or you're reading. Just how are you taking in that information? Capturing, which kind of goes along with absorbing. How are you taking your notes? What kind of note taking are you doing? And then reviewing, taking time to go back and think about it. What's your learning style? This is a section I always encourage students to go to vark-learn.com if you don't already know your learning style, because while we do have the ability to learn in different ways, sometimes we do have a preference. Sometimes we can take things in more easily through a certain style. So if you scroll down, it's what is your learning preference? You're gonna close the ad, sorry. And here's a questionnaire, and you'll just read each scenario and click 1 or 2 things that you would do in that situation, not more than that. And then you get to the bottom and you're going to hit OK, and it's going to tell you what your learning preference is. And whenever it tells you that, maybe you are a visual person, it's going to give you some strategies. It'll tell you what that means, what your preferences are, how to take in information, how to present it to others, how to study, how you can use it in school, in the workplace. I just think it's helpful to know that so you can make the most effective use of your time, both in and out of class. So this section kind of goes through different types of ways that we can learn, different styles. This talks about VARK in particular. We also, in this section, talk about reading and how important reading is. The College Reading and Learning Association approximates that about 85% of what we learn in college is done through reading. Oftentimes that is on our own. And so it's really important to have some really solid reading strategies. And our chapters in the future do talk about some reading strategies that you can be employing if you're not already doing so, and how that does play such an important role in your process of learning. Listening, if you are not a very good active listener, if you're not a very good listener inside the classroom, this section is good for you with different tips. Some in-class tips, if you will, like make sure you're sitting in a good place where you're going to be removed from distractions, ask questions, answer questions, record lectures to listen back later, read your notes out loud. All of these things are going to help you. This is going over like a seeing learner. So if you're like a visual learner, so this is going to give you tips on how to do that. Making sure that you're looking at the visuals and kind of going back and really looking and seeing if you can put information into a way that's going to be visually appealing. And then some more kinesthetic, like hands-on. And if you are like an emotional learner, this is going to go over some ideas on how to make learning more appealing and informative for you. Also, sometimes you have to adapt your style just a little bit, because just like learners have different styles of learning, teachers have different styles of teaching. And so it's helpful to know that and kind of just be flexible to that adaptation. All right, almost to the end here. What is college? This is just different experiences that you might come across. Here at Stark State, most of our classes are fairly small. Usually you won't have more than 20 to 25 students in a class, sometimes way smaller. So that's nice to know, but if you transfer to a 4-year, you might be experiencing anywhere from 100 to 200 students in like a big lecture hall. So that does happen as well. And so you want to just be aware of that. You want to make sure that you know what is expected of you in terms of your career path. If you go to Stark State College homepage and under academics, if you are already declared, you can find your career community. Let's just say education. You'll scroll all the way down. All these are set up very similarly. You'll scroll all the way down, lots of good information on these pages, and then you can click on the program that you're specifically in. And then under courses, you can click and it's going to bring up a PDF, and here are your technical courses, your non-technical courses, your electives, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's really helpful to know that early on, how many credits you have to take, what choices do you have, making sure that you touch base with your advisor. This section goes into online courses, how obviously you're in one right now, but I've had students sign up for an online course and then 4 weeks later say, oh my gosh, I totally forgot I was in an online course. And so it really does take a lot more motivation, dedication, keeping up with things. And so these are some general tips. I always like to tell my students, dedicate a specific day or days and times to work on your online class. We have attendance deadlines on Wednesdays, so you might want to log in on Monday and then again on Tuesday or Monday, Wednesday, or whatever the case is. Also, unfortunately, with online classes, technology issues aren't an excuse, because you sign up for an online class, knowing that you're going to have that access to technology. Now, that's not to say that obviously things pop up with technology, but what I do tend to see is sometimes students will wait to log in for the week for the very first time on Sunday at like 10 o'clock, and then they have some kind of technical glitch. There's not a whole lot I can do because I'm not always online all the time. So that's what I mean by like just making sure you're checking in earlier, because if you have a technology issue, hopefully you can catch it earlier in the week so you have enough time to ask a question, get that response back. All right, class attendance, college policies. Again, I always encourage students to take a look at these topics. This is going into academic honesty and making sure that you are honest in your learning. It can be a very serious consequence if you are not. And different college resources. Also here on our Start State homepage under info for current students, we have a whole list of support. So many different resources here on campus. Hopefully if you've already been here for 8 weeks, you know a lot about these, but we have a writing center, we have a testing center, we have student clubs, we have the digital library, we have career, so we have a lot. You can drop down on any of these and find out a little bit more about those, but just make sure that you're aware of them. You've already paid for them. You've already paid for all those resources, so utilize them. Excuse me. And then finally, this is just some general success tips. Sometimes it's important to understand that we may not do well, and that's not necessarily a failure, that we have to learn from those mistakes or learn from those experiences, and then make sure that you are viewing grades in a healthy way. You can have a straight A, 4.0 average, but at the end of the day, not know what you learned. But there might be some students who get A's, B's, C's, but they really put in the effort and they learn a lot. So sometimes grades don't always have to be the end all be all. And just making sure that you are going through the learning process, not just trying to get a certain grade for your grade point average. This does talk about calculating your GPA, and I'm not saying that GPA is not important, but we also want to be putting in the effort to learn, not just get the grade. Some of your programs will have GPA requirements, so you'll want to know that early on so you can be working toward that. And then again, just general succeeding in your first year, which a lot of you, hopefully most of you, are already in right now, your first year. All right, so that is chapter 1. Again, I encourage you to spend some time in any of the sections. You can always click over here, contents, and go specifically to a section you feel like you need to really focus in on. You can look through that slideshow, whatever works for you. And then I will see you for chapter 2. Bye.